This is what you should say. So welcome into the first official episode of the Senior Roundtable Football Podcast.
Well, thank you. You just introduced us. I started recording.
Perfect.
That was
Perfect. There we go.
perfect. I loved it. All right. Welcome,
There we go.
everyone, or no one, because this is the first episode.
To the millions of people listening across the country and around the world. I guess we'll start with Detroit and Kansas City, obviously. Thursday night football opened up the season.
I think we should start with introducing ourselves.
Oh, I mean, okay. You introduce yourself.
My name is Matt. I am I have to pause because I'm wearing a Dolphins jersey, but I'm a Jets fan. Down in Orlando, and
divisional rivals wearing
what
some
can I
Miami
say?
jersey.
Big win yesterday. It was a lot of fun to watch. That's why we got to support the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins.
Oh man,
Ridiculous.
Here.
I'll introduce myself here. My name is Charlie. I am 23 years old. I am an actual diehard Jets fan. I've been a fan since I was 9 years old. And I'm just ready to embrace the suck. Let's go Jets.
My name is Thev. I am a diehard Panthers fan, and I'm an OKC fan with basketball. So I'm in purgatory right now. But yeah, so I already know how it feels for all those teams that went through rebuilds, all those teams. I know how it feels, man.
And I'm Zack. I'm a Jets fan as well. I'm also a Mets fan if we ever happen to talk about baseball on this podcast. But yeah, I've been a Jets fan since the Sanchez administration, and now we're here looking at Aaron Rodgers. So things are looking up for us.
Came a long way.
And if you want to see Zach's face, give us 50 subscribers. That's the number. It's exclusive content.
You can see my face at 50 subscribers and my feet at 100.
So get us up, people. I think he's underselling the feet ones.
That might be the wrong group, but
Yeah.
Oh,
hey,
right.
I'm
We're
not going to shame anybody. It's just not my personal thing.
Yeah, exactly.
No discrimination.
We are a football podcast. So, I mean, feet should be involved. Regardless,
Ooh.
let's circle back to this Detroit and Kansas City game.
Now we can get there.
What did you guys see from Patrick Mahomes on Thursday?
What didn't we see from Patrick Mahomes? That's the bigger question. He was giving it his all out there. You saw him dealing with the pass rush and getting the balls off in classic Mahomes fashion. The receivers just weren't there for him. That's my Skip impression. But yeah, no, I have a few stats to go over from that. Fucking on my handy dandy whiteboard. 8 drops, 5 of 14, third down conversions. I know that one's not only a wide receiver stat, but that's kind of still fucked up. And 10 of 22 passes to the receivers completion. So under 50% completion rate to these wide receivers. So where were these people? Sky Moore, nothing. Kadarius Toney, one of the worst performances we've ever seen. We've seen no wide receivers score lower in PFF than Kadarius Toney. So where were these guys? Rashee Rice was the biggest standout as a wide receiver.
Rashee Rice, the rookie, shocking.
Yeah, shout out to Rashee Rice.
So the thing about that is, this is the one thing that we always do as like fans. We don't appreciate greatness when they're in their greatness. Right now, Pat Mahomes just certified on Thursday Night Football I'm the best quarterback in football right now. There's no other quarterback that went out there without their head down with that JV team on offense. Let's be for real. That offense is one of the worst offenses we'll probably see all season. They're going to revamp that offense by the end of next year. We might not see that offense ever again together. So that offense right there, that was my key thing. That Pat Mahomes is the best QB in football. There's no other way to put it. Pat Mahomes, if we plugged in Josh Allen in that play, those plays that Pat Mahomes found a way to make, they weren't happening. That interception that he had, if there was a way to give Kadarius Toney interception, we would have gave it to him, because that was insane. The ball was in his hands. I hate when regular people be like, "Oh, I could catch the ball if they do it." No, that was a plug and play. Any other receiver in the league, you plug there. That's easy. 7 yards, whatever catch that is, plus another 8, because that's how open he was. That I was flabbergasted watching that game. That Andy Reid put out a football team like that. I've never seen that before, honestly.
Yeah. You got to give a lot of props to the Detroit defense, though. That defense came in locked down.
Those rookies were showing out. Jack Campbell was present, despite I don't think he got the start, and Brian Branch can speak for himself with a 50-yard interception return touchdown.
He was the first ever rookie for the Detroit Lions since 1967 to get a pick 6 in their debut game. Since 1967.
Lions have had a lot of top picks since then, too.
Oh, yeah.
The starting to pay off, though, now. It's starting to pay off. I mean, the Lions, in my opinion, forget the Cowboys. I think they're going to be America's team this year. I think everyone's rooting for them. They're rooting for Dan Campbell. They're rooting for Hutchinson.
Dan Campbell. That's a hard story not to root for.
I think we're rooting for Goff.
Ooh, Carl, that's another one. I think
it would be cool.
They're Jameson Williams away. They're Jameson Williams away from being a surefire playoff team. The team that we watch without their star receiver, arguably, we could all say Jameson Williams is one of their best.
But would you bet on that
core right now? Honestly, that was my main takeaway, that they're J-Mo Williams away from being a contending team, like an NFC North healthy team. Because we got to remember those powerhouses, besides the Eagles and 49ers, we don't really see those powerhouses make it through to the end of the year. Those powerhouse teams usually die down. They're hamstring and ACL away from not being too well. Like you guys were saying, that team, like we said it before, the team had a lot of draft picks. They built through the draft with the very capital they had with free agency. They went and got C.J. Gardner-Johnson, which was a huge hole for them. They needed that safety help with Brian Branch coming in. They don't have to put a rookie playing multiple positions. They could just have him focusing at once. This defense, like you guys said, that linebacker core might be one of the best in football right now, and they're one of the youngest besides the 49ers. But as we're seeing, the 49ers just paid, how much did they pay Bosa? They paid Bosa
$122 million guaranteed.
The 120, that's NBA numbers. Let's be for real. We're seeing numbers like that in the NBA to role players.
We're going to see it in the NFL too, especially with all these media numbers coming in, all the streaming deals. I feel like we're going to see it's going to be NFL and NBA numbers soon.
That's one thing the NFL will not have are guaranteed contracts. They will not have guaranteed contracts.
I think owners are going to do something to a running back to give him a guaranteed contract to be like, yo, this is why we don't give it. But that's a whole different conversation. But like I said, this team rebuilt itself through the ground. They got some a coach that bought into it, and not only bought into it, he cried when he had to get rid of Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams isn't the best running back, but that just proves to you that he's buying in and has these players buying in. So I love it. When Jamal Williams comes back from that little 6-game or 8-game suspension, whatever it is, I'm saying he's going to have 100 yards off rip, maybe even 2 touchdowns.
Think about how he came into his rookie year. After he came back from his initial injury, he came back and he caught a touchdown on his first catch. It's unreal.
He's going to be hot. He's going to have that season behind him. That BS that we could say, the BS suspension, 6 games. Let's be for real. That should be a 2-game suspension. He got the same amount of games as Alvin Kamara, which is insane. The 6-game suspension, he's going to come off that suspension, be one of the best young receivers. I 100% believe it, and I'm behind it.
Especially when you're accompanying him with Amon-Ra St. Brown, who had I think a very productive day with 6 receptions, 71 yards, and a touchdown. I think their offense
first touchdown of the season, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Drafted him in the 2nd round, baby. Shout out Amon-Ra.
And I just think that's going to be a solid young offense. You got Amon-Ra St. Brown. You're going to have J-Mo Williams. And then when you got David Montgomery and Gibbs, I think that's got potential to be a top 5 running back tandem in the league this year. I think.
Also, don't forget about Sam Laporta as well. Don't forget Sam Laporta.
Behind that,
Sam
Laporta was another.
It's just everything.
That
I
team
don't
is
think we
just
can really like list the weakness. Sure, like they have some roster turnover, especially on the defense, but like if those
you're
players
gonna
that they
see
turned
that
over
young
to
team.
stand out, then we're talking about like a Super Bowl contender very very soon.
I
But
think
Yeah.
that small sample size we saw them knock off teams in the playoffs, that little 3-4 game stint that they had last year at the end of the season, I think that's the Lions. I think the Lions that we saw on Monday night perform and be like, yo, this is the Super Bowl champions. I don't care that they're banged up. I don't care that they don't have Kelsey. This isn't the same team as the last 2 years that terrorized you guys, but we're going to knock them off. And that's exactly what they did. And I'm so happy if you're a Detroit fan, that don't take that as a little pushover. Oh, it's Super Bowl drunk. No, that team knows how to perform at the end of the year, and the fact that you guys knocked them off in probably a crucial win for them, you guys are going to be competitive. So if you're going to be competitive, you got to knock off teams like that. Those are PowerPoints. Huge win for you.
What do you guys
Huge
say
win for
to the
you.
fact that the Kansas City was out two of their biggest stars between Kelsey and Chris Jones? Do you think
I
that
mean,
softens the win? Because I've been seeing some analysts say that this should be looked at as a win with a caveat to it.
it's next man
I don't
up.
think
It's next man up
exactly.
regardless. I mean, to come back to what Tev was saying about Mahomes being the best quarterback in the league. I mean, isn't it the responsibility of the quarterback to make his receivers better, regardless of who's out there catching the ball? I mean, you can't argue he's definitely probably the most talented of our generation right now, but I mean, you gotta be able to put your receivers in the position to make these plays. Obviously, we look at Tony, and I specifically outlined in my notes here, Kadarius Toney is ass. I I don't think there's
Very
any
astute
excuses for
point.
Kadarius. Yeah, for 2 point Tony, I think there's no excuses for him. But at the same time, I think he's got other receivers on his teams. Obviously Kelsey being out hurts him, but you still got guys like Rashee Rice, Isaiah Pacheco coming out of the backfield. He can catch some balls. We've seen him be a dynamic threat, especially in the playoffs. He could do everything. So I'm not sold on Mahomes being this untouchable god in the NFL yet. I'm not. Now that we see him without Tyreek Hill, without guys like Mecole Hardman, I don't know. I'm not sure.
You know who we're going to see with Mecole Hardman, though. We'll get to it, but we're
We'll
excited.
get to that.
So,
I
what
gotta say,
about
you
the
know
No.
what's the
one
thing though?
o'clock
You know what's the
window of
thing though?
games? Oh, I'm sorry, Charlie.
You know, it's the one thing the best player on the Lions. We didn't even talk about him. Aiden Hutchinson destroyed that elite Kansas
Only
City
10
offensive
points in
line.
fantasy, though. We started doing IDPs, and I was expecting a lot more out of Hutchinson, given some of the points that other
Um.
defensive players were getting.
Mahomes is just like the most
Oh
unsackable
yeah.
quarterback in the NFL, but he was getting after him. He was
That
that
line.
Trey
Lived in the
Smith could not
backfield.
hold him to save his life. Not block him at
So
all.
so going up what Goldman said, next man up. I think their line was banged up. I got to be 100% sure. I think their line is banged up. But that whole Chris Jones and Kelsey not playing isn't Mahomes' fault. Injury or not, Chris Jones didn't play because his GM doesn't want to pay him. His GM's watching all these defensive players get these guaranteed contracts. I'm pretty sure he asked for $2 million more. Now he's going to have to pay him about $5 to $6 million more. That Bosa deal fucked up the whole market. I'm a Panthers fan, like I said. Brian Burns' deal went from being a Max Crosby type deal from 26.5 to possibly even getting 29-30 a year, which is going to ruin younger. Like I said,
Right.
Brian
I
Burns.
remember,
He's
like,
younger than Bosa.
being a Jets fan, I was kind of relieved to see like Quinn's cap number fall south of the 30 million number, a little closer to that 25, because of the fact it's like you look at Aaron Donald making over 30. It's like, was it
Yeah.
Bosa's making over 30 now? So isn't
Yeah,
he?
Bosa was at 20. He was at 25 before. Saw that Sydney made 26. Now he's at over 30.
Right.
All these younger players are seeing that base number be 30, basically. We're going to see a lot of those contracts come out to be 30. So,
Oh yeah.
like I was saying, if they just paid Chris Jones, like, all right, like, yo, kind of like what's his face deal, Aaron Donald deal, I think that's like a respect deal. Like, yo,
Right.
you're the best to ever touch football. You're going to retire within
Yeah.
the next few years. We saw the same deal from the 49ers to what's his face? To not 49ers. Yeah, the 49ers to Williams. When he was on the Williams, they gave him that kind of, all right, like you're the best in football kind of deal, but he ended up leaving. But I'm telling you, there's a few players that take those deals. Who else was it? Von Miller took that deal a few times. Like a quick $2-3 million deal where they give you, that medium that you want, but it's voidable years. It's not guaranteed money. When you retire, they give you a base money and they give you voidable years. Those contracts, they will come out more. I believe that, like I said, before I forget this, I think they're going to give Jonathan Taylor or a young running back or Isaiah Pacheco a guaranteed deal where it's going to go south and blow up. And then they're going to be like, yo, this is why we don't give guaranteed contracts in football. Offensive sides are going to start going down with guaranteed deals. We're starting to see it with Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson's guaranteed deal is not looking good. We're seeing more of those guaranteed deals tank. We could argue that guaranteed deal by Bosa for him to play, 13 games, 10 games, 9 games a year now? He's hurt a lot. Last year was probably his first completed year, and this is why he's able to say, yo, I want 31 or I want 32. I think these contracts are going to blow up in fans' faces. And I'm more than happy for them to get money, but it's going to blow up in fans' faces. It's going to blow up in organizations' faces, and we're going to watch it with the 49ers first. Because those contracts that they're giving up is Madden, like, yo, me and my friends are in a Madden league. I can't lose Bosa. I don't want him to get Bosa. Yeah, let me give him 30.
Especially with Javon Hargrave now. They just poached him from Philly over this past offseason. So let's get into that. The 1 o'clock slate of games, I feel like, was highlighted from the fact that, like, the Niners were on it and the Steelers were not. We saw a 20-0 lead start early in the second quarter, and they did not let the foot off the gas. We saw Christian McCaffrey get active, over 150 rushing yards. We saw the defense get after Kenny Pickett, making him look yet again like a rookie despite heading into the second year with high expectations. I think there's a lot to pull from that game.
I mean, the highlights obviously got to be TJ Watt. 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 1 tackle for a loss, 1 fumble recovery, and 5 QB hits.
Over 40 fantasy points in our, once again, we'll get to it. We'll explain the league a little later too, but our fantasy league was dominated by TJ Watt this weekend.
Are we already looking at the favorite for DPOI here again? I mean, is it over? Is the
also got 3 sacks. I'm just putting that out there. Brian
Burns had 1.5 a half, 3 tackles for a loss. I mean, these DMs are getting crazy. Like I said, that Bosa deal's killing the defensive side of the ball. I think we've seen 2 to 3 different DMs. Yeah, we saw 2 to 3 different DMs, D tackles this week at multiple sacks. Frankie Louisville was another silent killer. 1.5 sacks, 3 tackles for a loss as well. A few QB pressures. We saw a lot of DNs go crazy. Who was the other D tackle that played very well for the Steelers? That was like kind of just a little bright spot that they had. Cam Hayward had a game. I mean, a lot of their players are head down. You're going to see that a lot with the Steelers this year, I think. Kenny Pickett's only going to take them so far. I believe that he was just a reach. He was we got to take someone. We took a young receiver. We're going to have to take a young receiver. Hometown hero. It was kind of written in the board for them to take him, so they took him. He's from Jersey. We can't talk about him, man. We love him. We got to love him. But at the same time, I think he reached his max potential.
The thing is, the one thing I disagree with you, though, one thing I do disagree with you is I don't blame it on Kenny Pickett. I blame it on Matt Canada's offense. Because you saw last year how they couldn't even drive the ball down the field sometimes.
There are some talented players so many on that offense, so it does kind of baffle my mind to still see it not work out. Like, granted, we should give them, I think, a little bit of a mulligan because the 49ers defense was ready to play. Like, Nick Bosa did not come with a beer belly. I forgot who joked with, like, in the 49ers organization where it's like he's playing as long as he doesn't have a beer belly or whatever it is. And he was a part of a ferocious defense. It's unreal. So I think that's
by far
definitely
one of the best defenses.
Definitely one of like the most, I think, apparent like dominating games of week 1. I think right there up there, the Ravens taking on the Texans, maybe a little more expected. The Texans are just not able to welcome CJ Stroud into the NFL maybe as cleanly as they hoped.
I think they should have sat him. I think they did him a disservice starting him week 1. As much as they want to get him ready, I think they should have. That's an awful disservice. A disservice what they did to him. Even with that opening drive, we joked around about it. I'm pretty sure Charlie said that the Texans are just the Texans. That it was atrocious. It really was bad. Even tuning in, it was like, oh my God. Like, if I'm a fan, I'm feeling bad for them too, because you're going to be tuning in this every week. That team, it feels like that team kind of was like paced together. We got a rookie quarterback. I don't think they even expected to grab a rookie quarterback. I think they really wanted to go double defense, but the way that quarterbacks went, as soon as Bryce went, CJ went, it was just quarterback. It was one of those weird carousels where we saw multiple quarterbacks go. We saw multiple tight ends go in a row. We saw multiple guards go in a row in that draft. It was just one of those times in the draft where players just went out the window. But I feel like they got caught in a weird situation. Took Stroud. I believe they should have took a Hooker or a
Took a what?
or a Richardson to Hayden Hooker. Last year he came out? Hayden Hooker?
Yeah,
they should have took Hayden Hooker. They should have took Hayden Hooker and did the project like they should have done, but no. They went and took CJ Stroud, which isn't a bad pick, sit him. But they didn't.
Right.
And I think that's going to do really, really bad disservice to him in his career, playing throughout this
The one
season.
thing though
This season's going to be dark.
Texans game. One thing about this Baltimore Texans game, that the Baltimore offense still looked kind of fluky a little bit.
Well, J.K. Dobbins is once again out for the year. I feel like that's definitely a big thing to like note. I think that ultimately Odell Beckham's still making his way back from injury. I don't think he played a full snap count, did he? Because I know he wasn't a parent in my fantasy team. Maybe that's a bit of assumption on my part to make. But I don't know. I just felt like they did what they needed to do, like offensively. Like
the Texans defense played better than we thought sometimes. Just only allowing the Ravens to get 25 points.
That might be expected though, because DeMeco Ryans is heading the like. I have a lot of faith in DeMeco Ryans to be like the head coach that turns it around for Houston. I just don't expect it to be like instant.
I also don't think that Lamar didn't look sharp in my opinion. I mean, obviously it's week 1, so offenses are going to take the first couple weeks to kind of get to where they want to be.
Right.
But I mean, I just saw a lot of things I didn't like from him. I mean, he was 17 for 22, 169 yards on the day with an interception. I think it's only 8 points fantasy wise. So he's not. He didn't start the year off as that great fantasy quarterback that we usually see from Lamar every year.
Yeah.
But rushing, and he had 6 carries for 38 yards. So, we can see it. We'll definitely see an uptick in those numbers as the year goes on. But there are just some things I saw during the game I didn't like. The ball security wasn't great from Lamar. The fumble. I also didn't like that.
I thought he did get it. I thought he had a rushing touchdown. I misspoke there.
I know. Yeah, no, I don't think he did. He didn't have a rushing touchdown. I don't think he had any touchdowns yesterday. But I also didn't like when he fumbled the ball, I think, in the second quarter. And it was just right in front of him. He didn't even jump for the ball. Those are the things you kind of look for, especially after he got paid the way he did in the offseason. I don't know. I think he'll pick it back up throughout the year, but especially against the Texans, I was expecting a little bit more from him to open up the year.
No, absolutely.
I can't wait till next week when Kareem Hunt's going to be a running back for them next week. I can't wait till Kareem Hunt signs with the Ravens.
I think we're going to see Jonathan Taylor on the Ravens before the trade deadline. I think that's what's going to happen here.
That's a big prediction.
I don't think any team bites. Yeah, I don't think any team's going to bite on that trading unless they just like they're like, all right, fuck it, like we'll give them up. I don't think the Colts are going to give him up. I think that high first rounder that they asked for, a young first round player, was kind of like if you give me this, we'll take him, but we're not going to trade him. Obviously,
right. I also saw Christian Watson was reportedly like some a target of the Colts to get from the Packers when they were discussing a trade.
Well, Christian Watson is going to be one of those players that the Packers keep. And because the Packers traditionally don't draft wide receivers. So when they do, I don't see them trading him for anybody because they wasted a pick on him. When's the last time we saw that high of a pick on a wide receiver from the Packers? So them giving him up for ultimately what NFL sees as a bag of chips, We got to look at it like that. If the NFL is going to look at him like a bag of chips, we got to talk about him in trade discussions like a bag of chips. He's not going to be. Let's compare it to the Tyreek trade. Tyreek Hill was a sign and trade, one of probably the most recent sign and trades in my lifetime for NFL. I've never seen that before. A team openly sign a player and then trade him immediately, basically. So it doesn't hit their cap room and it doesn't hit anything. But that sign and trade, what was it? A package of second rounders and then one first rounder for him, and that was one of the best.
It was like a first round and a couple of thirds, I want to say.
So one of the best wide receivers in football at the time, coming off a Super Bowl, was given up for what, a first rounder, couple conditional thirds. So now we're gonna look at his resume as a running back. That running back resume isn't the best, being top rusher. I guess that's not something big for them because Philip Lindsay's out the league right now. He was a top 5 rusher, no fumbles, still out the league, can't keep a job. So that doesn't mean anything. Josh Jacobs just got tagged last year, almost broke the record, and he got tagged. So what? The tag's $7-8 million. That's what they want to pay running backs for the next 3 years, is what they're saying. With the media money coming in, with Bosa making $30 million a year, they still see running backs with, and Pacheco's don't help it. Pacheco's coming in the 5th rounders and running like that don't help these star-studded receivers. As much as they love them, no, they don't. Him being a second rounder, him getting that second round attention is gonna demand him to run out that rest of the contract. But I don't think he's gonna go anywhere else. They're gonna figure it out. Pay him about 12 to 13 yearly. I see about 8 to 9 of that being guaranteed, and they're gonna call it that.
I think there might be one team willing to get Jonathan Taylor on their field and pay him, and that might be the Indianapolis Colts, because their rushing attack was only Anthony Richardson, and we already saw him go out of the game in the last minute with an injury. He needs to learn how to slide. That's definitely true. Just like that Josh Allen type body, definitely want to use it. It's definitely like effective on the field, but it could put you in harm's way. And what we saw out of Deion Jackson, what we saw out of, I don't even know if the rookie Null really made it on the field all too much. I felt like the rushing attack could have used a little help. And if you have a running back like Jonathan Taylor that's sitting out and needs to be paid, maybe you try to pay him like a top 5 running back. Maybe that doesn't look like as bad as it would for other teams, especially a team that's going to have a quarterback under a rookie contract for the next 3 to 4 years. Probably 3 years, especially if Richardson works out. They're going to want to pay him sooner rather than later, because then they'll run into an issue with Richardson. I ultimately think that the Colts have a lot of pieces there. I think Steichen showed a lot of promise as a head coach as well. As a play caller who's going to develop Richardson, I felt like that was one of yesterday's biggest positive storylines. I think that even though they ended up losing yesterday, and Richardson did throw like an interception in the second half, things looked good. Like, I felt like they looked competitive.
I liked a lot what I saw from the Colts too. Anthony Richardson, I think he's going to be the starting QB for the Colts. Hopefully, there won't be they won't continue that carousel of different Week 1 QBs like we've seen the past few years. And I think you're right. I think he just needs that help from a guy like Jonathan Taylor. Richardson accounted for 263 of the 280 net yards in that game, and he had 40 rushing yards, where we only saw 14 rushing yards from Deion Jackson, who's the next highest rusher that game for the Colts. I think the Colts just kind of got to figure something out with Taylor. It's kind of ridiculous. Taylor's clearly a very talented running back, one of the best in the league. And to take that away from Anthony Richardson, especially he's coming out of college, stepping into being a starting quarterback for an NFL team, they're taking that away from him, because that would take a huge load off his shoulders and allow him to focus on managing the game more and not having to make a big play every time they're on offense.
I'll be the one outlier then. I hated the Colts yesterday.
Really?
I really didn't like the fact that they relied on Anthony Richardson. This might be one of the best quarterback classes that we see, and the Texans and the Colts are going to ruin it for us because, like you said, Anthony Richardson went out with a hamstring injury. The key reason why a lot of teams were doubting on Anthony Richardson was injury. If you have an injury-prone quarterback, and yeah, your line is one of the best in the league, but if you have an injury-prone quarterback, why are you setting him out there with that type of non-trust and confidence in your running backs if he can't get quick checkdowns down, if he can't get quick audibles to, give up possibly 2 yards, like possibly give up 2-3 yards, but I'm going to protect myself and give it to my running back because we trust him as an organization. The fact that Deion Jackson had 14 yards, I thought it was a little more, but 14 yards actually just is baffling. The fact that the rest of that running back crew wasn't ready, even with the contract negotiations, we all knew that he wasn't going to be playing week 1. I don't know what the organization was having, being hopeful. Maybe he just shows up. No, I don't think anyone in that locker room knew he was going to play week 1. So the fact that they didn't even sign a BS replacement, a Kareem Hunt, or even
a Leonard Fournette,
or even just Leonard Fournette, a BS 1-year replacement that you wouldn't mind cutting in a few weeks when he does come back, just to add some pressure on Jonathan Taylor's side and to help you have trust in a young quarterback. I completely forgot that they had a young quarterback with all that talk going on.
I think we might disagree about how the Colts executed yesterday and the concerns about Richardson, but I honestly agree with the heart of it in terms of we want to get Richardson out of the way. Like I said, you want to take him out of harm's way. You don't want him to be taking those Josh Allen hits, because I feel like Josh Allen's been relatively lucky that he's gotten not so banged up as he might. I know he had the elbow thing last year. But ultimately, the failure to equip him with at least a running back. There are so many running backs, so affordable, so cheap, and you're telling me that you can't even get a replacement for Jonathan Taylor if you're not trying to make a running back a top 10, top 5 paid running back? That's possible. He's at Kareem Hunt. I feel like he might not be the freshest legs anymore, but at the same time, what's stopping him from getting more than 1.1 yards a carry that Deion Jackson did?
Very serviceable. And another thing that I have is I know we were all around for the Andrew Luck. They're treating him in a sense like Andrew Luck. You're going to be our savior. You're our top pick. Here, go out there. Fuck it. The O-line's a lot better. He has a few more threats. But what's a few more threats, a few key linemen that keep getting banged up. When's the last time we saw Quentin Nelson out for a full season? When's the last time that we saw... besides Jonathan Taylor, when's the last time we saw a serviceable running back in Indy for all those quarterback carousel that they had? I see why he wants that money. But at the same time, it's you guys have been going through this for the past 3-4 years now. Andrew Luck forced his retirement out of there. You guys are forcing... I hated how they did Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan, I went against him 2 times a year. That was not the Matt Ryan that we are used to seeing. I don't like how they... I don't like how they're bringing around this organization, and the fact that they just threw Anthony Richardson out there means that either one, they don't have any confidence in him, or their confidence in him is way too high, and they need to pull back a little bit because that offense is not ready to have a rookie quarterback. There's some offenses you can't plug in a rookie quarterback, and that's just one of them. They're sinking way too much.
You brought up facing the Falcons, and there's one rookie quarterback that we haven't really talked about. We've talked about Stroud, we talked about Anthony Richardson, but Bryce Young, first overall pick from Alabama, made his debut for the Carolina Panthers yesterday facing that same Atlanta Falcons team. What are your thoughts, Thev, being a Panthers fan?
So, first off, I'm going to give my credit to that Atlanta team. They get the joke, their offense is like a high school offense. Their defense is built like a high school team, the whole team. That team, they spent the money, they used the draft picks. That team looks good. With a weak NFC South, this might be the last time I admit this, they might win the NFC South. They looked very, very serviceable. If Desmond Ridder could take a few more leaps, don't pass it to himself, basically. I don't know if you guys saw the headlines. He had a catch yesterday.
Yeah, that was a pretty funny play. Yeah.
So if he could find a way to not pass it to yeah, those are always funny because it's whose fault is it? But if he could find a way to not be basically Atlanta carousel quarterback, they could go very, very far.
I also don't know who was
Like you
saying it,
guys
but the
said,
commentary like that I got and like my little like fill-in was like, you want to swat that down when it comes back to you, and I'm like thinking like that's like the thing you probably practice least in practice. Like you are not
yeah.
thinking about like how far is the defender away from me? Am I safe to swat this down? Just catch that shit and get down. The play is over. I don't care how many yards it loses. Don't lose that shit.
Yeah, just grab the football, and he did a pretty good job with that.
Yeah, I respected that. I felt
But
like that was honestly a smart play.
Panthers wise, the defense looks pretty serviceable. Their run game definitely needs help, but who knows? That might be one of the best 1-2 punches we see without even Cordell Patterson. Jameer Gibbs and I might be pronouncing his name wrong, Algieri, whatever. That might be the best 1-2 punch. Algier. He might be one of the best. That might be the best 1-2 punch in football right now.
That running attack that Arthur Smith is using, it does make that passing attack look ugly. Kyle Pitts, once again, not really showing up. I think he really only had like 3 targets. Like, he had a big catch, but that was it.
Targets.
That is not a passing offense.
Where I think we might see 2 like fantasy viable, like true like running backs between Algier and Bijan Robinson. I feel like that might end up.
I think both of them are like top 5 RBs on the week.
They're gonna end up having defense might end up having to bring like an extra person in the box more and more often. We're gonna see what that ends up opening up for Ritter as his season goes on. But they were on it. Like I think Zack had some thoughts about Ritter, some constructive criticisms.
I don't love Desmond Ritter. I don't think Desmond Ritter is a starting quarterback in the National Football League. I don't think he has the potential to do that. He just looks too raw for me. He's being thrown into the Atlanta situation that is improving, especially from what we've seen the past few years. But I don't think he's going to be that guy to help have them, to give them the turnaround season that they might be looking for.
He's beaten out Mariota and Heineke.
Yeah, okay. I think I could beat out Mariota and Heineke.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that Tyler Heineke is a Panthers GOAT. I don't believe that he beat out Tyler Heineke. I believe that was just a fluff to the media. Oh yeah, he's our guy. Fuck it. But no, I don't believe he beat out Tyler Heineke. Tyler Heineke's a dog. I love him, man. That was just my quick little verse. I don't believe he beat him.
I just don't think Desmond Ritter is going to be the guy for the Falcons long term. I think he's going to be a bridge quarterback for them. They might be looking for talent in the draft, QB wise next year.
You think he'll be more Dougie Mills than Jalen Hurts?
Absolutely. It's just,
right.
I think the Falcons' offense clearly looked better because outside of the excitement around the debut of a number 1 overall pick like Bryce Young, we were looking at probably arguably the most hyped prospect in that class, Bijan Robinson, who looked dynamic all game. I think he didn't have this massive game, but for week 1, especially being a rookie, I mean, 56 yards rushing, and then on the receiving end, he brought in 27 yards with a touchdown, and he also he had forced 5 missed tackles, which we saw him do in college. I believe, didn't he break a record in college for the most missed tackles in a season? I think the Falcons hit on Bijan Robinson. I think he's going to develop.
Big hit.
I think he's going to develop into a top 3, not just running back, but weapon in the league. He looked like that. The one he missed from a touchdown for the 1 missed tackle looked like that Lamar Jackson highlight from when he was in high school. I mean, it was just unreal to do that at the NFL level, in my opinion.
To your point, by the way, he is the first player in the PFF era over the past season to force over 100 missed tackles.
Yeah, that's just insane to me. And to already see that translating into the NFL level, I think that's exciting for Bijan.
Yeah, I think that it's going to end up being...
That's another thing, too.
We're gonna see a high ceiling in Atlanta. I think these 2 teams are going to be duking it out really soon for NFC South supremacy.
Yeah, but like the flip side, it felt like every time Bryce threw the ball, he was throwing a coin flip. He was extremely accurate. If you pulled up his chart, all his passes within 10 to, which is not that impressive when I say it, but all his passes within 10 to 15 yards of the line of scrimmage were either completed or batted down. His interception was common. When you watch it, it's a common rookie interception, staring down his tight end, was close to the line, was close to his own goal line. He just threw it. That's a common we see quarterbacks vets do. I saw Sam Darnold do it for a season last year. Saw Baker Mayfield do it for a season last year. So for Panthers' eyes, it isn't new, but we got to keep into aspect that he is a rookie. Those passes are going to happen. He had 2 of them, a little shaky, but he also tried to hit it deep to Terrence Marshall, which was incomplete. And I believe that was a wide receiver fault. You saw it, Terrence Marshall hesitate a little bit, like he didn't know which way to go with the ball. And then he remembered possibly that, I'm going on a streak route, was thrown about 3 to 5 yards overthrown. But he did beat the receiver. It was basically led to him. A lot of his incompletions looked like they were able to be blamed on either the wide receiver or an outside force. He was very, very accurate. But besides his game management, he was poised in that pocket, got sacked 3 times. But every time he got right back up, it acted like nothing happened. Even after those interceptions, got right back up. You don't see quarterbacks go for the pass right after. He went for a pass to drive right after. I believe 2 plays right after. He threw the ball both times and completed the ball and then went back to the running game. But I feel like as the Panthers, too, we're doing him a disservice throwing him out there with Adam Thielen and Terrence Marshall. DJ Chark obviously was hurt, but and Miles Sanders, I feel like we're doing him a disservice setting him out there with that wide receiver core. And if it wasn't for our division being so bad and us having such a bad schedule, I would say that we would be a sub-5 win team. But because we're granted with such a bad schedule, we're going to end up with 8 to 7 wins, and hopefully we could draft a wide receiver. But as of right now, it is looking dark. Jonathan Mingo didn't have a bad debut. Got limited touches and snap count. I thought that he would be seeing a lot more because of that wide receiver room being banged up. But I'm guessing Panthers wide receivers year one typically don't play a lot. We saw it with DJ Moore. We saw it with Terrence Marshall. I make jokes that Terrence Marshall got redshirted because Terrence Marshall was not playing, got a very, very limited snap count. Even last year got very limited snap count. But I trusted Frank Reich. That's another thing that got swept under because of Bryce and all the rookies playing. It was his first game. He was also our first quarterback in franchise history. So he's used to having sloppy first. So hopefully he could bounce back and bring this organization right. Brian Burns, phenomenal. Brian Burns on that line. Brian Burns, Frankie Louvu, and Derek Brown, phenomenal. They looked amazing. Jeremy Chin had a few bright spots. J.C. Horn went out with a hamstring injury. They will keep it posted. I should have looked at the media. I should have looked at the media room when I woke up, but I didn't get to that. But I feel like every year he's having a hamstring injury. I think it's time as a Panthers fan for us to move on. He isn't the Pat Surtain we thought he was going to be. When he is playing, he is a phenomenal cornerback, but he's not available. And that's the number one thing in this league, availability. If he's not available, then we can't keep servicing him. His contract's going to be coming up soon. He's going to be asking for that top money. And I don't believe that we should pay him. I think we should start looking otherwise. But those are my main key takeaways from the Panthers side of the ball. Oh, and also that O-line, phenomenal. That O-line was really good. They gave up 3 sacks, but they're banged up as well. They kind of plug and played all game. We look like a college team because we legit were getting linemen in and out, and they look good. So that team, if there's one bright spot that looked very good, was that O-line. That O-line held up pretty well for what they had. But anything else you guys want to throw in on Atlanta or even Carolina?
I got one thing. Why is Tyler Algier the goal line running back when you drafted Bijan in the first round?
Because you want to preserve the future.
Yeah, but you know what? It's like the 3-yard line. You drafted Bijan for a reason, and I drafted Bijan
folks as
for
a fantasy fan.
I mean, he's lining up at slot a lot, which is pretty shocking. He's going out there in the slot and really killing it.
I like seeing what we're going to call the Joker role, or Cordero Patterson does. I think that it's a necessary skill and it keeps running backs involved while also kind of increasing their longevity. Because having them run routes is a lot less grueling than putting them behind, like, the offensive line and having them run through defensive line linebackers. Now it's just like, all right, you got the ball in your hands. It's like, you're already in the last line of defense. You know what to do from here. So I think using Bijan Robinson in that way is just, like, very smart if you want to have him around for, like 10 years might be ambitious for a running back. We'll say, like, the next 6 to 8 years.
I mean, Cordell's in his 11th year. That's almost a fact check. I think he's in his 10th or 11th year playing that role for about 6 years of it.
Right.
He's been in the league, so it's working for him. He's not complaining about money. He's obviously not the Bijan or top running back when he was playing running back or top receiver, but, I mean, Taysom Hill is another one that comes out of the back of my head. He had that one voidable year where he made top quarterback money, and each stat that dropped the amount of money he made. I think he came out making like 12 million that year.
Probably why they don't let him play quarterback anymore either. They know they'll have to bump up his pay by like 10 million. Like that contract, he did really well for himself, and everyone was kind of like goofing on the Saints there, where it's like, what was it, 4 years, 140 million? It read as the headline, and then it was like not actually that, but.
Yeah, not a big asterisk. He came out 12 mil that 1 year when he did play quarterback. I believe for like 3 games.
Did Taysom Hill do anything yesterday during the Saints Tennessee game? I know that one was kind of an ugly one. Like Tannehill threw 3 picks. Henry looked good, which was a good thing, but like that Saints Titans game, red zone did not turn to it very much. I don't think there was much of note going on there besides Nick Folk having a very successful Titans debut.
And also Hopkins had a pretty solid performance as well. Hopkins had like 4 catches for like 50-something yards. He looked pretty solid in like a low-tier passing offense.
That's good.
But eventually during the year, when the defense gets a little bit better, because Tennessee always tends to have a pretty tough defense in general, and having Vrabel as a coach there, you're going to at least be competitive in that division. Probably going to be between Jacksonville and Tennessee again. The AFC South. I think Traylon Burks should have got a little bit more involved.
Yeah, I don't see any other potential winner of the AFC South unless Anthony Richardson really balls out. I really think the Texans we can count out even at week 1. I know the season's a season, anything can happen, but we're ruling the Texans out.
The Texans would have to win 3 games. Ooh, Calvin Ridley.
Oh, that is a headline. Calvin Ridley looked good. He had, 8 catches, 108 yards, and a score?
Yeah, I actually drafted him this year.
Yeah, he's a dog.
And he was a lot of mental health issues, and then he was off for the year for gambling. And finally see him going back out there to an offense that actually wants to be in. A high-powered offense with an up-and-coming quarterback like Trevor Lawrence. He's going to ball out. I knew he was going to ball out from day one against his terrible Indy defense, and they're going to ball out for the rest of the season. This Jaguar team's going to be nasty. They might make the AFC title game this year.
This Jaguar team. Do you think they can get past the Bengals or even the Chiefs? We just talked about how the Chiefs might not have the offense they've had in recent years. So could the AFC title be up for grabs? Because, the Bengals stunk it up. We haven't even gotten to the Bengals yet. The Bengals might have been the biggest disappointment in week 1.
They might have been over the Chiefs as well because they have no excuse.
Right.
They were fully healthy. But no, I think that we're watching because I guess our generation watched them stink for so long. We're watching a new regime. Jacksonville's going to be a competitive team for we got to accept the next 5 to 6 years with Trevor Lawrence under the helm. If he could stay healthy, Calvin Ridley can stay healthy, they're going to keep attracting talent because we're seeing it now. We're not seeing teams staying one-dimensional. Teams are attracting talent just because they're good.
I feel like people forget Doug Peterson has a ring. Like, he got let go.
And he has a good track record.
Yeah, he's been a solid coach. Yeah, the Eagles fell off, but, I feel like the Eagles have been, they let Andy Reid go at the end of the day. They have been willing to part ways with coaches. Now we're seeing, Steichen. I know, Peterson isn't necessarily a branch of, the tree. He's a previous regime. But, whenever it's a coach leaving the Eagles, there's a piece of my mind that's this guy's going to be good. Even, Frank Reich comes from that tree where it's
Yeah.
He made the Colts look good. He brought the Colts to the playoffs. Like, why was he such a maligned hire by the Carolina organization? I felt like he was just very much like almost that Doug Peterson-esque hire. So ultimately, I think that these teams are in better hands than they might ultimately seem when these hires initially happen.
Speaking of big hire, we actually shut down. Carolina's a big like sports town. Apparently, they shut down the whole stadium. Had highlights of him playing from college, on our Megatron. Had a big Carolina rollout. Fans were in the stadium when he came out to visit us, or not visit us after he signed with us and did his whole rollout. Fans were there. Teams are buying into these coaches, these big, smart, like basically came from regimes, like you said, coaches. We see it with the McVay. We call it not McVay family, the Shanahan family, that people call it now. Where those Shanahan coaches and those McVays and all those coaches are being separated a lot more. And we got to look into it. Maybe in history, coaches were a lot more credible than what we give them for. But yeah, a lot of these organizations, like the Jacksonville, we watched them not too long ago. We practically said Trevor Lawrence's career was done with one coach. Came back, bounced back pretty well. It looks like he's doing lines every game, and he is just playing out of his mind. I love it. That team's bought in very well, like you guys said. That team's meshing very well. That defense is looking ferocious. They're looking like that Jalen Ramsey-esque defense. That's the last time we saw them that competitive, with their defense carrying them. So
I think the
I
title
love it.
game is
I
a
can't
very
wait
real
to watch it.
aspiration. I think Super Bowl might be, honestly, for the Jaguars. With like we said, let's get into the Bengals next. Like talking about AFC contenders, the Bengals stunk it up. Joe Burrow, he won his $275 million contract, highest paid player in the league, and highest per year average in league history. And this quarterback goes out and throws for less than 100 yards against a ferocious Cleveland defense who looks to be the part of a contender in their own right this year. That being said, with those type of weapons, this is nothing more than an anomaly. I'm not putting too much thought into this one just for the fact that it was a wash. It sucked. It was awful, but they're going to be ready to play. This was the team that was, I guess, caught off guard by the shorter offseason, by whatever was going on with Joe Burrow in the background. I'm not sure if it had more of a distraction around the scene than like they made it seem in how they were handling the interviews, because Joe Burrow handled it like a total pro. But that Bengals team absolutely struggled, and T. Higgins 0 catches. Tyler Boyd, I think 2 catches for 10 yards. Jamar Chase didn't cross over 50 yards receiving. There were just so many players that did not do their job yesterday. They lost to some elves, as Jamar Chase put it. I'm a little amazed by like how poorly that went, and that's why I almost don't want to put more thought into it, because like logically I'm like, that can't go that bad for the rest of the season, right?
I think it's clearly just a week one kind of performance.
Yeah.
Like it takes some time for offenses to get to that. They're tuning up right now, and obviously, I mean, it's an abysmal performance from the Bengals, especially this team that we've seen. I don't want to say dominate the playoffs past few years, but they've been serious threats in the playoffs. And just for Joe Burrow to get that kind of money and come out and perform the way he did, it really has to be an anomaly. I mean, I don't expect it to carry on this way for them. I think the Bengals, even last year, had a slow start, and they tend to pick it up closer to the end of the season or that mid-season mark. But, I mean, Burrow, 14 for 31 and 82 yards. And getting the kind of money he got in the offseason, I mean, it's unheard of. And then we look at the Browns, though, real quick here. We're looking at, the second coming of Larry Fitz. I want to make a little comment on our guy, Elijah Moore, requesting a trade after 2 games with the Jets, because, that's what rookies are allowed to do now. Coming in and only, I think, what Larry Fitz, with his hands here, he had 7 targets, but only brought in 3 of those for receptions. I don't know. Maybe I'm happy he complained his way out of the Jets offense.
little bit of context.
I was just
I
gonna
thought
say.
Elijah Moore was the second coming of Larry Fitzgerald. So when we call Elijah Moore Larry Fitzgerald, that's where it's coming from. I have now passed on that moniker to Garrett Wilson. That's the real next Larry Fitzgerald. I think Garrett Wilson's style is a little more different. I felt like Elijah Moore would end up being like almost that Larry style receiver for us, and like he was a dog rookie season. So I really thought he was going to be the one to save our passing game with Zach Wilson. Now onwards and upwards, but I just had to throw in that little caveat.
I was gonna say, is this a bigger win for? Is this a bigger win for Cleveland, or is this a bigger loss for Cincinnati?
I think
see
this
you
is a
guys
big win for
brushing it off
Cleveland.
like. So yeah, I was gonna say Cleveland looked pretty good in that win. As much as people want to downgrade it, whatever, they look good in that win. In an offense that looked pretty stagnant last year, they were one of the worst offenses. Besides their run game, they looked like one of the worst offenses. Let's put it down straight and positive. That's the biggest upside with their running game. But besides that running game, they looked really good last night. I think that they might be another contending team. The AFC might be back with Cleveland. Cleveland might be one of those teams that can knock you out late in the season. I see them on that borderline. I'm not saying they're going to win that division. That division is a very tough division. It's going to be a tough division. The next 5 years in football is going to be like the AFC. That whole AFC is going to be stacked for the next 5 years in football. But I think Deshaun could turn it around in there. I think he looked pretty decent. I think that they handled themselves pretty well against the week 1 divisional matchup. I think they were, like you guys said, were a lot more prepared than Cincinnati. Cincinnati also signed him in the middle of the night. I don't know how official it was in the middle of the night. Apparently, all throughout practice, it was a little secret that Joe Burrow was going to be getting that contract. But I got a notification, I believe, at like 11:30 at night that Joe Burrow just got signed. So I don't believe that that's a good way to roll out a contract signing, especially a few days before you're starting day one. But I think that was one of the key things. Deshaun Watson might be back. And if Deshaun Watson is back, we were saying he needs to be in that spread offense to be able to succeed in the NFL. And last year kind of emphasized it even more because he wasn't in that spread more so. He was under the pistol a lot, running play action. But he looked good. He looked like he's finally finding a home in Cleveland. And with everything that was against him, I'm happy for him to an extent. He's looking good. He's looking like that Clemson type, that Clemson-esque.
That was one of my biggest questions for the year, to see whether or not Deshaun Watson would look like the Deshaun Watson of old or the Deshaun Watson of 2022. Because if he looked like 2022, I felt like he had a very, he came in later. He didn't have a full season, so he didn't get the headlines that Russ did. But it wasn't a secret that he stunk up the Cleveland offense, that Jacoby Brissett was looked at as a more capable manager of the Cleveland offense that was run last year. So I believe that if we see Stefanski kind of renege into some of these things and play into Watson's strengths, I think we will see this Browns team become very dangerous very quickly. Because Darius Smith was another under-the-radar transaction that went down, released from the Vikings or traded for very cheap over. He is going to form one of the worst pass rushes to go against with Myles Garrett. I think that Cleveland defense, as we saw yesterday, we can blame some of it on disconnect, but you have a point in saying we need to figure out how much of a problem this Cleveland defense is going to be, because right now it seems like it could be a huge one if this wasn't just an anomaly.
Yeah, the Cleveland defense. Or what were you going to say? You go, Thev. What were you saying?
I was just going to probably say what you were saying. That defense looked amazing. Looked like a top 5-esque defense. That defense that defense is going to, not only them, but when we get to the night game, I'm going to say this again, that defense is going to win them games. Those close 10 to 17 games that we see around week 7, week 9, that gritty time of the season, that defense is going to win them a handful of games. And I really believe that this defense can spark something. We saw it a few years ago with Myles Garrett carrying that workload by himself with that quarterback carousel that they had for a little bit when what's his face, when Baker went out with that shoulder injury. We saw it a little bit. We saw it on other teams where defenses with that much star power just kicked up, and even role players in a sense are stepping up. And when you see that, that's very, very dangerous. Only injuries could stop defenses like that. And for them to go out against divisional rivals, good game, bad game, whatever, subpar game, Cincinnati has 3 number 1 receivers that I believe 20, 25 teams in the league that they could go to and become wide receiver number 1 or compete for wide receiver 1A, 1B. And for them to go against a team like that and with the run game that they have as well, they did phenomenal. I'm so proud of the Cleveland defense. And if you're a Cleveland fan, that's another team that looked very, very good. They looked damn near perfect. The only thing that I could say is a few times you saw that Deshaun Watson wasn't too comfortable. And even in his touchdown, that touchdown drive, he didn't look too comfortable a few times. It looked like he was rushing a few plays, and it looked like he was, in a sense, rushing that offense.
I saw one throw down the field that definitely, didn't quite make the receiver, but it's like, it's a start. It's
week 1. If we're going to give Cincinnati that pass because it's week 1, we got to give him that pass.
We're not going to bring up the fact that Jared Goff didn't look fantastic either. The Chiefs defense held up against him. We're not seeing too much come out about that. I think Watson kind of deserves similar credit. He did enough to win, and he did plenty to win, honestly, in this case. I want to bring us to the game of the week. Cardinals, Commanders.
I don't even know what to say when it comes to the Cardinals.
Versus Sam Howell. We don't have to spend too much time on this one. It's the last 1 o'clock game. Realize it's the last one we didn't mention at all, and it was looming over me. Josh Dobbs looked respectable. Sam Howell looked respectable. Respect to that ref that took the charge and then threw out the flag. I thought that was kind of cool. That's really all I know about this game. I don't know much.
I mean,
fire both coaching staff.
Brian Robinson got a touchdown.
The only highlight for me was Emmanuel Forbes,
it's pretty cool how what the Undertaker's doing since he retired.
Yeah, it's the only highlight for me was Emmanuel Forbes. He was only targeted twice that whole game and didn't allow a reception. So I think that's great for him. But outside of that, I mean, especially for the Cardinals, I don't think anyone's going to want to be playing for Mike Gannon. I mean, when you talk about football coaches, that guy is just
Sean Gannon, right?
I think it's Mike Gannon or Sean Gannon. No, Mike Gannon.
It's Mike.
Oh, I thought it was John Gannon. Fuck.
Yeah, he's just.
Wait, it might actually.
Let me look it up.
It's Jonathan Gannon. Jonathan Gannon.
It is John Gannon.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know why I was thinking Mike Gannon, but
it's Jonathan.
I don't think anyone's going to want to play for John Gannon by week 8. I think it's going to be everything I've seen in terms of Twitter videos and highlights. That just doesn't seem like a head coach to me.
No, he seems like he should be on the Practical Jokers. To be honest with you,
I mean Arizona.
Oh my bad.
Well, to start up with Arizona and the Cardinals team, I'm one of the people that think that that's a burning building. That he was just a bridge coach. We see that not necessarily a lot, but we do see it in the NFL more than the NBA. And any other league, the NFL does not care to pay a coach and then fire him within a year, fire him within 2 years. I feel like once they get their feet rolling and the fire extinguishers start going, we're going to see him out the league. We're going to see him back in that coordinator role. I feel like they just gave him this job, kind of be like, here, take the L's for us, and we're going to find our real changer, because we saw Frank Reich get hired in a serious role. We see, like we said, in those other regimes that got reset by great coaching, Brian Daboll's, Robert Saleh, that wasn't that type of hire. I feel like that was type of, here, we need a coach for next season. You're already here. You're available. Best available. Here you go. Here's some money. Let's see what you could do. Let's see what you can do for the culture. But like you said, by week 8, I feel like they're gonna know. Yep, he's not going to be our coach. Our coach for the next 3 years or however long that contract is. We're going to fire him and go on. But I believe that was a not a bridge quarterback, a bridge coaching hire. I don't see him and Kyler Murray getting together pretty well because, yeah, his offense is pretty good, but I don't think that's a Kyler Murray offense. That offense is, I don't even know if that's even an offense. I don't even know if that's even a football team at this point. They're just throwing guys out there. And I feel bad for Emmanuel Forbes that has to play with Washington as well. Yeah, that team looked awful. Both teams looked awful. That might be 2 bottom-tier teams.
That felt like a game that was kind of up for grabs. So I know Sam Howell, there's still the jury's out about him. We could see him break out. We could see a respectable team like fielded by the Commanders under Eric Bieniemy. I just will believe it when I see it. We don't have much proven to us right now. So I think that I bring it up as a side note just to talk about it before we move to the 4 o'clock slate of games. The Commanders and the Cardinals are very much going through the motions right now. I feel like neither of those squads believe in themselves to be contenders. So until they do, we won't.
And I'm a big Riverboat fan, but it's about time he's out of the league. This is now, I believe this Commanders team he's in another situation where they don't want to hire another coach in this situation without a quarterback.
I feel like he's become the next Jeff Fisher. He's just become the Jeff Fisher of the 2020s.
Yeah, he has that role now.
Overachieving bad teams, underachieving good teams. It just seems like he always falls into that.
That weird spot. Every time that you expect him to get fired, he'll give you quick 7 to 8 wins, give you that reassurance, and then right back to subpar. As a person, he might be a great coach. We don't know, but even the way he handled Carson Wentz was having his bad point with them, and he straight up told media that, it's not our fault when our quarterback plays bad. You don't throw your quarterback under the bus like that. He's done it with Cam Newton. He's done it with other great players like Luke Kuechly. He's done it with Luke Kuechly in the past. He has a bad rep of throwing good players under the bus at bad moments. He isn't a locker room guy. He lost that locker room last year. I believe he's going to lose it again this year. I think we're going to be watching, like you said, the Jeff Fisher of this 2020s. He's probably going to get another coaching job, believe it or not. There's going to be another team that's going to give him a shot. But I think we're going to see him fall. We're going to see him fall into that defensive coordinator role, which wouldn't be bad for him. But coming from head coach, I don't see him taking that role very lightly. I see him kind of dwindling into college realm and then dwindling out of the football head coaching talks because the last few years have been really bad for him.
Yeah, safe to say he's on the back 9 of his coaching career. But I do want to get to the 4 o'clock games.
Yeah.
So getting into the 4 o'clock slate of games, me, Charlie, and Thev all tasked ourselves to watch one game each. I know there were 5 games. There are 6 choices there. Me and Charlie both watched the Dolphins-Chargers game. Great choice, by the way. And I took on the Raiders-Broncos game. Charlie took on Eagles-Patriots as well as Dolphins-Chargers. And Tev took on Packers-Bears and Rams-Seahawks. So we're going to kind of break down. We all took a little bit of notes on what we observed and a few of our takeaways on that. So Tev, would you like to take the floor first? Tell us about one of the road wins that the Rams-Packers received today.
So let's start off with the Packers-Bears. Bears shocked me in a sense. I thought they would be visibly better week 1. There's room for growing pains and for that offense, but that offense really shocked me. I thought that we would be watching probably a shootout in that one game, but I didn't see any besides a few big plays from DJ Moore, a few big plays on his legs. from Justin Fields. I didn't see that high-powered offense that I thought I'd see. With a revamped O-line, a new OC, a new quarterback coach as well. They kind of revamped everything for Justin Fields, and they kind of doubled down on the fact that, we're going to trade down from the 1 pick, or if we do trade, or if we do take someone at the 1, it's going to be a defensive player. So them trading with Carolina kind of wasn't a shocker at all. We knew that they were going to trade or take a defensive player. We knew they weren't going to go for a quarterback. So it's kind of falling on Justin Fields' hands. Does he want to take that step up? And I believe that he does, but I don't believe that he has the power. And this is coming from someone who drafted him in a Superflex league as my first quarterback, not even my second quarterback-esque. He was my first quarterback taken. So, he was a pretty big disappointment for me. On the other hand, Jordan Love looked good. Jordan Love looked like a vet out there. He looked like a regular game managing quarterback, which esque is dying in the NFL and doesn't get the big headlines. Oh, he managed the game for us. That's what he did. He went out there, had a playbook. I believe that he had probably about 15 to 20 plays that he had in the back of his hand, ready to throw out there. And he looked good. He looked like he was running that offense and running that team like a vet would, like an Aaron Rodgers. It sucks to compare him to it, and he's going to get a lot of comparisons to it, like Aaron got to Favre, but he's going to get a lot of comparisons to it. And, he ran that team very well. At one point, he got the ball at basically short field for his first drive, and he brought it down following drive. Him and Aaron Jones with that run game was very good. Was handing the ball. It sounds crazy, but he was handing the ball off at the right times. On second downs, you were expecting shots down the field, giving quick handoffs. Always good when quarterbacks have that ability to know, I can throw a shot downfield. The defense probably isn't expecting it. I'm going to hand it off, get my quick 4 to 5. And that was really very, very well done by him. On the other side of the ball, we didn't see that much. We saw him taking shots. We saw him standing in the pocket a little too long and having to rely on his legs. And the commentary said it. Commentary said it best. We want to see Justin Fields' run game be a complement to his throw game. And yesterday, we didn't see it. Yeah. That team, not even talking defenses, that team had the ability to win that game. I believe that the Bears was the better team on those two matchups.
I had the Bears projected to win, so I'm happy you say that because I feel a little less crazy for taking the Bears going into that. I felt like Jordan Love could have been good, could have struggled. That was up in the air. The wide receivers he was going in would possibly say that he might struggle, but Jalen Reed, had a receiving touchdown late. Romeo Doubs, I think, got 2 receiving touchdowns. They made it a lot easier on Jordan Love than, the Packers defense made it on Justin Fields. Justin Fields, I noticed, never really broke out, never really got dynamic. And, the game manager type of style that you bring up in Jordan Love, you say is rare. But the game that I went into, Raiders-Denver, that was a game manager fest between Russell Wilson and Jimmy Garoppolo. And I'll give credit to both. There are a lot of questions about both and their fits to the offense. I have my own questions about the Raiders and how Josh McDaniels is going to run that ship. I feel like it's going to be into an iceberg. But for now, so far so good. I felt like Russell Wilson also looked good under Sean Payton. He looked clean. He looked like he wasn't trying to outdo himself. The offense was very manageable. They had him moving. He looked good out of the pocket. He looked good on the move. Javonte Williams was running well. He looked fresh. Nothing too big or overwhelming, but he looked solid. He was churning out his gains. I believe he finished with over 4 yards per carry. Samaje Perine, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that, looked really good. He broke out a few times and looked to have an extra bit of juice in him. I noticed in Cincinnati, he looked a little more spry than Joe Mixon a few times last year. And I'm not shocked to see him off to a good start in Denver. Cortland Sutton looked good. I felt like him and Russell Wilson were on the same page. And, Russell Wilson, once again, I respect how he handled the game in Denver. That being said, the Raiders pulled it out. And a lot of it has to do with Jimmy Garoppolo. I think that Jimmy Garoppolo looked very good as well. He made a couple difficult throws. That 4th-and-1 conversion early on to Devontae Adams. Adams did definitely get his share. That being said, Pat Surtain held him at bay when they were matched up together. When Surtain was the nearest defender, there were only 2 catches by Adams versus 3 pass breakups. So Surtain definitely still looks good. There was a DPI mixed in there that Adams was able to draw off of him. That being said, the Raiders got it done. Josh Jacobs definitely had his moments where he looked a little rusty. But he got it done. There weren't necessarily like any huge holes. He definitely broke a few tackles, and I respect what he was able to get done. So all in all, I feel like this game kind of surprised me. Like in terms of, I was very positively surprised with how watchable the first half was, particularly, and the second half, it didn't get ugly compared to some of the other games we watched this past weekend, I should say. That might be the better way to put it. But now I wanted to possibly go over to Charlie and maybe Zach about the thoughts on the Eagles-Patriots game.
So what I thought of the Eagles-Patriots is because the final score, 25-20, Eagles get the win. Even though a win is a win, the offense still looked very shaky. They really missed Shane Steichen in that play calling. Jalen Hurts went for 22-33, 170 yards and a touchdown, and he also ran the ball for 9 carries, 37 yards. And he also had 66.7 completion percentage. Kenneth Gainwell, pretty shocking, took all the carries for the Eagles, 14 carries, 59 yards, but no touchdowns. He also catch 4 catches for 20 yards. A.J. Brown also had a pretty decent week 1, 7 catches, 79 yards, no touchdown. Devonta Smith, only person to catch a touchdown on that team, with 7 catches, 47. And for the Patriots, Mac Jones looked pretty all right. He had a lot of passing attempts, 34 out of 55, 316 yards, 3 touchdowns. Also had a pick. Zeke Elliott in his debut for the Chargers actually didn't really do solid.
Zeke's playing for the
He
Chargers?
did have a lot of my bad, Patriots. My apologies.
Yeah. No, you're good. You're
good. He played. He didn't play too bad. The run game overall was pretty inefficient, just because the Eagles are one of the best run stopping teams in the league with Jalen Carter there and Jordan Davis. This is a Georgia Bulldog team. They should not even be called the Eagles. They should be called the Philadelphia Bulldogs. Zeke Elliott had 7 carries, 29 yards, for 4.1 yards per carry, so at least over 4 yards a carry, pretty efficient. He also had 5 catches for 14 yards. But for Ramondre, he actually only had 12 carries, 25 yards. Like I said, the Eagles' run defense is just too good. But if you're a fantasy owner, play PPR, Ramondre definitely bailed you out for the 6 catches for 64 yards, just like me in our Dynasty League.
That's cool.
But I want to give a big shout out. I want to give a big shout out to Kendrick Bourne, kind of a former 49er, signed with the Patriots on like a 3-year contract a couple years ago. Actually probably had his best game with 6 catches, 64 yards, 2 touchdowns. Hunter Henry also had a touchdown this game, and also 5 for 56. And the biggest takeaways, though, but Mac Jones looks really confident in his Bill O'Brien offense. Like, he looks more fluent. He doesn't like it. The offense is more spread out in a way. And I just really think that the Patriots offense is going to be at least a little bit better. That's why when I would say, like, don't doubt the Patriots, coming from a Jets fan, because they always given us a toughest challenge. I'm still concerned about this Patriots defense. They looked good. They locked down one of the best running teams in the league. They stopped one of the most up and coming quarterbacks in the league, Jalen Hurts. And the one thing I'm really mad about this Eagles team, they only gave DeAndre Swift 2 touches. He only had a carry for 3 yards, and he only had 1 catch for nothing. Like, you traded a 4th round pick. You should be at least giving him way more touches. He's got to stop relying on Kenny.
I think
Kenny
we're saving
Gainwell.
him for later in the season. I think Gainwell's the guy right now, and I think that Swift and possibly Rashad Penny, both potentially injury prone, will end up showing their face later on. I thought, like you said, it was a little discouraging to see the Eagles not be able to knock out the Patriots after going up so early. I felt like, we were joking in our own group chat that it seemed like Matt Patricia was still coaching the Patriots when the pick 6 happened and things weren't looking as promising early, but Mac Jones really looked better. I felt like, the Patriots offense was a lot more competent, and that's always a good thing in the NFL. Like we said, there's a little bit of a lack on competence in terms of like offensive efficiency, and it felt like this was almost like a 4th preseason game. A lot of people are still getting their execution under wraps, and we're going to see a lot more clean football like moving forward. And that brings me, actually, I feel like a perfect segue to the game of the week. Some of the only clean football we've seen. Tev, you look like you wanted to say something.
Yeah, before we move on from that, I believe that this is step one of Mac's resurgence. I'm not saying he's a top 5 quarterback. I'm not saying he's a top 10 quarterback. But he is going to show that he isn't out of the league like a lot of reporters are saying. I believe we're going to see a lot more of the performances that he gave against the Eagles, which wasn't bad. This is a Super Bowl-esque team. You guys said it yourselves, a lot of top prospects on that defense. But yeah, that team's a Super Bowl-esque team. And for him to go out there, surge a comeback, was arguably, 2 catches from a rookie away from being the winner of that team, of those two drives. I believe that they should have got that win. Eagles got bailed out a little bit, but yeah, at the end of the day, I think he looked good. This is going to be the resurgence of him. We're going to see a few more interceptions from him just to mac it up a little bit, but after that, he's going to have a pretty good season, I believe. He's going to be in the middle rounds of quarterbacks and possibly get that contract extension that he really wants.
Hopefully no more competitions with Bailey Zappi.
One more thing, though.
Yeah,
Eagles MVP, Jake Elliott.
Elliott.
He bailed them out. He bailed them out.
I can't take it anymore. I got to talk about this Dolphins-Chargers game. I thought that execution was fantastic. I think even though the offensive output from the Chargers in terms of yardage didn't match that of the Dolphins, the Chargers' execution was good. I thought they looked sharp. I think that Staley's situational coaching and their preparation for close game situations could still use a lot of work, like we've seen ever since Staley's first year coaching the Chargers. That being said, the running game looked good. Not only was Austin Eckler able to get over 100 yards with less than, I believe, 15 carries, but Josh Kelly got himself going. He got himself in the end zone, and he made himself very present in that offensive attack. And I feel like that's worth a lot of note before we get into some of the bigger names that popped up, especially on that Dolphins offense. So before we start with our takeaways, I absolutely have to give the props to like the Chargers' offensive efficiency. I felt like outside of like the offensive line busting down in terms of Herbert's protection a few times, we saw a relatively polished Chargers offense.
I agree with you with that. The Chargers offense looked pretty well. The run game, Kellen Moore has revamped this running game because Eckler literally got over 100 yards on 16 carries, and Joshua Kelly also got almost 100 yards himself off of the same amount of work. And I really think this offense looks more fluent with Kellen Moore than it ever did with Lombardi.
I think if you put them against most teams this week, they come out with a win. But the Dolphins were on it. They could not do anything. I think some of it has to do with the Chargers secondary, which did not look to be up to par with the Dolphins receiving core. Jalen Waddle went off for a big catch early on in the first quarter. Tua was mobile. He was accurate early. He was thrown over the center of the field, something that they've already identified as his strength. And, of course, Tyreek Hill. What else is there left to say? He was the offensive player of the week. I don't think there's anyone that can really come close. Tyreek Hill made everyone look like they were running 2 steps slower than him. It made football feel unfair because no matter how many times the Chargers fought back and played solid situational offense, there it was. Tyreek Hill was just open down the field again. What was the name? River Cracraft. He got open over the middle. Cracraft. He got open over the middle. Everyone was just open down the field, and there's no real excuse for that.
There should have been a better way to find a way to cover those guys because Kenneth Murray should be, because he's that head honcho at linebacker currently. There's no one else really there besides him or Eric Kendricks, which Kendricks is getting older, up in age. And I also think that Braxton Berrios, former Jet himself, Braxton Berrios actually had 3 catches.
He had a nice third down conversion catch that pretty much helped Miami seal this game and get down the field and score. There was a 3rd and 15 that Braxton Berrios came down with the ball near the sideline. Great throw by Tua. Converted, and this is for 17 yards. So I feel like a lot of this was fantastic. He had 264 yards, Tua, in the first half. Miami gave up 0 sacks, I believe, in the first half. The offensive line was a question of mine, but it checked off on every box. I felt like Miami is going to be terrifying to play against this year after seeing what I saw. As a Jets fan, I feel a little relieved because I have a Sauce Gardner in the defensive backfield. I have that TJ Reed in my defensive backfield. I have two cornerback ones to deal with guys like number 1-7 here, Jalen Waddle, and also Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill is always going to be a problem. I don't think anyone's going to be able to wipe him off the field. But if anyone can, it might be Sauce Gardner, and we'll get into that like very soon with the Jets Bills preview as we come close to our wrap up. One last game that I wanted to get into, a big upset alert that Thev was watching yesterday was Rams Seahawks.
So with the Rams Seahawks, that was another one that shocked me. Honestly, I thought that I wouldn't be tuning into that game a lot. Even in our group chat, I was talking. I said I have a NFL Plus. I'm gonna probably watch that on replay. I caught myself watching that more than Bears and Packers. Those two teams had a little weird interdivision. I don't know what to call it, but that shocked me. Matt Stafford going out there and not even game management, because he came out with close to 300 yards. I believe he had 287 or something like that. Went out there, played really good, didn't throw a touchdown. Backup running back, rookie, had two red zone touches that ended up in touchdowns, and that kind of shocked me that they were able to manage their way on that Seattle defense to win that game.
Right.
And maybe in a way, I'm not saying that they're going to be a surefire playoff team, but I see them giving that division a very, very tough time with Arizona obviously not being the best and a lot of teams basically giving it away to Seattle. I think they give Seattle a run for their money.
Right. I was just going to present this question to you. Do you think, you asked me earlier, or asked us earlier, do you think the win between Cleveland and Cincinnati was more on Cleveland or more on Cincinnati? How do you feel about Rams versus Seahawks? Is this the Rams playing up and Stafford's back and they have potential to resume their high playoff aspirations, or do you think that the Seattle Seahawks are now starting to meet the projections that were placed on them last year before Geno Smith broke out and became the comeback player of the year?
So I believe that this is the middle ground question. This is the middle ground, which we're going to see a few times this season. As a few games keyed off like that they're probably going to hit the middle ground. I believe that it's a yes and yes answer. I believe that, yes, we're seeing the Seattle that we should have saw last year. I think we saw the cap of Geno Smith. A big key of that contract was they gave him a multi-year contract, but it isn't a top-paid contract. It isn't the worst contract. It was a middle grounding contract. Yeah, it's a big contract for a backup quarterback, but I believe they gave him that contract to kind of, if in that he does pan out to be that quarterback that he played like, that they don't have to pay him top quarterback money, and they're going to have him in the contract for the next few years. But at the same time, I believe that they gave him that contract to help them be like, all right, our defense is pretty solid. We just need somebody there to keep our head not underwater. And I believe that's what Geno Smith is. Geno Smith is a quarterback that's not going to keep you underwater. There's a few times last season where we saw him struggle down the stretch of games. We saw him not be able to win some games, but because wins count more than losses in the NFL, especially quarterback-wise, he looked really good. But I believe that the Rams just were this was a big win for them without their top wide receiver. Their defense looked very good down the stretch. They really emphasized on the fact that Geno Smith was their quarterback, and they had a little bit of leeway to send out an extra rusher and not worry about a DK Metcalf killing them up top.
Right.
They don't have very notable defensive backs since giving up Jalen Ramsey-esque player. They don't have very notable defensive backs. I believe Aaron Donald is on the back end of his career. So we're going to see a lot less snap count from him.
Right.
And the fact that they were able to come out there, beat probably the clear division winners in most people's eyes, and let them know, yeah, we're here, and we're not going to let them have it. Even if they win 2 games this season, if those 2 games come from beating Geno Smith and that team, I believe that's a successful season for them, because I believe that was just a statement win for them. Even if, like I said, they win 2 games, they go on a 5-game losing streak, and we see a little bit of Stetson Bennett start to come out. I believe that win was more so of a statement win for them and the league, that they're competing, and no matter who's going to go out there, they're not just going to let teams run all over them. That offense looks stagnant at times. Yeah,
especially with
Pocky
Nakua, the next Cooper Kupp, maybe. Pocky Nakua, I think he looked good, the 3rd-round rookie. I think that was the one thing that I wanted to point out in that game, too. He went for 100 yards in his NFL debut. So as we move on to the primetime games that have happened or are going to happen tonight, let's talk about New York. The Jets, the Giants, the high aspirations. How are we feeling about some of those? Some of it's still prediction, because the Jets are yet to play, the Bills are yet to play, another like the New York's true team. But one team might already have some projections shaken based on how they performed last night. You're muted, Thev.
You're muted, bro.
Oopsies. I believe that they made the wrong decision. Yeah, that was probably one of my biggest things. I'm probably going to do that a lot. I believe that them paying Daniel Jones was probably the worst thing they could have done.
That was absolutely atrocious.
They basically let the team and the world know that Saquon isn't important to them. If you guys tuned into any part of the game, Saquon was the only player playing hard on that offense. I believe Daniel Jones gave up on himself possibly 3 drives in. That defense was very stellar that he was going against. They're going against the 1A, 1B cornerback matchup where they don't have a traditional star wide receiver. So besides Darren Waller, who is a tight end and didn't get that much snap count due to injury, but he didn't have a star wide receiver to really throw out there and be like, yo, you're going to be lined up against Diggs all game. Be ready for it. So I feel like Diggs and Stephon Gilmore and got ahead of them and was ready for the mediocrity that they threw out there. I believe that no NFL team should be able to really dominate on one side of the ball like that against a team, and they really did. That defense looked phenomenal. Special teams looked very well too. They look very good. Well, I lost the word. They look very well coached. I believe that coaching staff, just everyone on that coaching staff, just bought themselves another 2-3 years in the league with that win. So yeah, McCarthy was on the hot seat just because he is a Jerry Jones hire, and Jerry Jones hires tend to have that smaller leash compared to every other coach. I believe that he was, I don't know, man. He looked very, very, I mean, the Giants didn't look too good, but he looked very good, and it was a one-sided, complete affair from coaching staff to off-season signings to even the play style. Everything looked in the favors of the Dallas Cowboys, and now you don't see that a lot in the NFL. And it's half down,
shape or form. What was it? I know the Giants had their struggles, but it just goes to show how well constructed this current Dallas Cowboys offense and defense and special teams. Well, maybe the special teams was a fluke. Maybe that block was lucky, but it just felt like it was an all-around domination, like you said. I feel that the offense, Dak, there are still some question marks about. He threw a career high in interceptions. I believe that he isn't going to fully be over those issues this year, but they gave him more help. I think Brandon Cooks is a fantastic wide receiver too. I think that having CeeDee Lamb, absolutely. I think that CeeDee Lamb Cooks. I think that Tony Pollard, who had 2 touchdowns, even among all the other scores in like the 40-0 blowout that was yesterday, it's unreal to think that like the Cowboys might actually be Super Bowl contenders this year. We were all born in the late 90s, so we don't know life with Dallas Cowboys actually as Super Bowl contenders.
We always get that fluff where we see them show a little bit, and then like you said, we're that generation that watched Cowboys be mediocre. Basically, we're the generation that watched for the most part the Dolphins not be good. We were the generation that watched Jacksonville not be too good. Tampa Bay as well, and we watched
Cleveland,
the way they turned around.
Buffalo. Remember when Buffalo was a perennially
Buffalo
bad team?
was the laughing stock.
Yeah, they were the laughing stock
in the NFL.
Now they're all of a sudden in the
we
playoffs
grew up
every
watching
year.
those teams. Yeah, now we're watching those teams basically solidify a playoff spot every year. So we watched the Chiefs basically die with Alex Smith every year. We were that weird generation in sports where the teams that are on top now weren't necessarily on top, so we kind of seen the makings of a team that reshaped itself. And I believe that the reshaping that the Cowboys are having or the reshaping that Giants feel like they had last year. Yeah, they won a few more games, and they had a new regime come in and everything, but I believe that the clear number 2 team in that division is the Cowboys, and possibly even win that division because the Eagles didn't look too hot week 1. Granted, it's week 1, and they just came off a Super Bowl drunk tour or whatever, but week 1 they look like the clear division winners, and it's sad to say because I have the Eagles winning that division.
I think it's up for grabs for sure after what we saw yesterday. I think the Giants are probably the team I'm worried the most about. Like Seattle, sure they didn't get it together, but like Jackson Smith, I feel like they didn't have him. Tyler Lockett's starting to get a little up there. They have a young offensive line. There are things that will like write themselves out and are like in Seattle going to
and
be
that
a little
defense
volatile.
Is phenomenal.
Like they're like
way
with Cincinnati, like we're saying
defense.
it's a fluke. Yeah, no, for sure. With Cincinnati, we're saying it's a fluke. Like ultimately, like as well as Cleveland did to earn that win, Cincinnati will be back. We will see a better Cincinnati Bengals team. But the Giants, it's like sure we will see them be better than they were this week, but like Jones is getting paid. They shifted the wide receiver core. That being said, there's no actual true wide receiver 1 still. Waller is already dealing with a hamstring. Already had to have his snaps limited. What was it? Andrew Thomas is working out, but Evan Neal is somebody who was pegged as one of the worst performers yesterday before I think he came out with injury.
Yeah.
Micah Parsons was all over that defense and without necessarily having to do too much on the stat sheet. He's becoming somebody who's a necessary double team. Him? Like, I think we have to.
Yeah.
But, he's, like, one of the biggest guarantees in this league right now. I feel like he's a sure thing to be a rock star no matter where he lines up. Obviously, now it's probably going to be a little more on the edge. They're probably going to try to have him settle in instead of doing some of the crazy crap. But Micah Parsons was the first defensive player taken in our fantasy league by me in the 4th round over some big names.
Yeah.
And it's because this guy is fantastic. Yeah.
I believe he's the next defensive player of the year. I think we're gonna watch a little regime by him. I feel like we're gonna be that generation that watched him get drafted and watched the greatness just in the field because he might be one of the best defensive players besides Aaron Donald that I watched get drafted. He
is purely dominant.
Yeah, you always.
Purely
dominant from
Watt
day one.
And Bosa are both fantastic, but to me, TJ Watt, JJ Watt, Aaron Donald, Micah Parsons are the 3 players that I remember seeing make an impact on the defensive field to that regard.
Yeah.
The only other one that I can really think of is Revis in the secondary. Revis in the secondary.
Yeah, and a short-lived player.
Yeah, they're it's definitely been captured over certain years, in terms of defensive primes, but I think this is going to be maybe this is a bit of an overstatement, but if I'm going to do it for anyone, it's going to be for Micah Parsons, the Lawrence Taylor of our generation.
Yeah, he's going to have that type of. I'm right behind you with that. I kind of stopped myself from saying a Hall of Fame career. We're gonna watch a Hall of Fame career.
Yeah, he himself said he doesn't even want to be a Hall of Famer. He wants to be one of the best Hall of Famers, and like that type of motivation, like I don't know, I just see the traits of somebody who's gonna be great. Into it. So like,
and especially the way he plays behind it, I buy into it. I believe that he has a possibility to be multiple Defensive Player of the Year. Like if his team could figure it out, multiple Super Bowl champion. Because on big games he shows up. Right. One thing about him in the playoffs is he's the player that will show up on that Cowboys defense. Even how bad they look or how bad Dak looks week in, week out, he looks phenomenal.
Von Miller was able to win a Super Bowl for the Broncos. We could see Michael Parsons very well do the same thing there. So all this to say, like, I understand the Giants look bad, the Cowboys look good. I'm like, it's one of those, like, or I almost can't answer, like, who I'm worried about versus, like, who I think, like, did better. Like, you know, like we were saying the same question we posed with the Rams and the Seahawks, with the Browns and the Bengals. Like, this one was the Cowboys look good and we're encouraged, and the Giants look really bad and we're really discouraged. So it was like one of those where it's like,
that was a middle ground.
Yeah, so I feel that we have a lot to see out of the Giants to prove. And
Brian Daboll has a lot to prove now.
Right, all of a sudden it's back to unproven territory. Like, yeah, he was coach of the year. Yeah, he revamped the Giants enough to bring them to a playoff. It's now, can he do it again in New York when the expectations are there? We want the standard that we want, and we're very impatient to get it in terms of, like, that New York fan base. I think that will end up hurting this Giants team with all the question marks that they have, with the fact that Daniel Jones is getting as much money as he has. I think he has a huge target on his back versus last year, where it's like, if he works out, that's cool. If he doesn't work out, we just draft. Yeah, like, now all of a sudden he worked out, and it's like, will he work out again? Will it always be like week one? Like there's a lot of worry, I think, there. Like, I think confidence was taken away from that Dable locker room. That was a very, like, I feel like symbolic ass whooping. That, like, you know, they put that field size flag out, and then on that same field, the Giants were absolutely washed. And it's just like, if the Jets do it, like, you know, with the Bills, like, tonight, I think there are going to be some very, like, disappointed, like, New York fans that saw this as a turning of the tables for, like, the New York franchises that suffered, like, a tough past decade.
Yeah, like we were talking about before, we watched a lot of teams be bad. So, in that sense, seeing the Giants lose in this fashion, we've seen some Giants teams lose bad, but this is a really bad opening week loss. I haven't seen a loss like that by the Giants opening week in a very, very, very long time. I'm talking past the Obama administration, like, bad. If that loss was any type of things to happen for the season, pack it up early, Giants fans. Daniel Jones, get a house outside the city. And Saquon,
stop paying for those expensive New York houses. Go find something in Kansas, because you might not be a quarterback.
Go find something in Kansas. You might not be a quarterback for long. You might take the Carson Wentz route
or something if you're going out to Kansas. So, you know, honestly, I don't feel that strongly about Daniel Jones flaming out yet, but, like, I'm worried about him. I think there's some question marks there when he became, like, that $30 million quarterback. Let's hope he can ball out. I root for him. I don't root against anyone. I don't root against Tony while we were clowning him earlier. Like, I hope he gets it together, because I think he was balling out beforehand. I think that, like, we'll see. But I wanted to say, Charlie, did you have anything to add before we possibly shift the focus over to the Bills-Jets game?
Honestly, you guys hit it. You guys nailed it out of the park. The Giants looked really terrible. Waller hurt his hamstring on a limited snaps. The wide receivers still looked very sluggish. It just wasn't a very competitive team coming out of New York. Let's just hope the other New York team tonight comes out very competitive.
As a New Jerseyan, I'm not hesitant to claim the Jets. So
Buffalo's closer to Canada than it is to NYC. Just saying.
So they're the Toronto
Bills. Buffalo might shock everyone tonight and have another
I don't think it's shocking
Historical.
anymore. I don't think we're there yet.
No, I think the Bills are still
Okay.
favored.
Yeah.
Last time I saw,
Yeah,
the Bills
they
are
might
still
be.
favored.
I think this is like
let
an
me look
are
at
we
FanDuel
legit
on
or
my
not
end.
game for the Jets. I feel like this is
Yeah.
like, are we legit or is Aaron Rodgers going to be 2022 Aaron Rodgers and like we're just like gonna have like a mid season?
I believe that
Media is
defense
really
is young and
hyped
has
this up
to
as
prove a lot
Super Bowl.
too.
Yeah, like our defense did well. I think Sauce as well as he did last season. I don't expect him to do better. I think that like in terms of like cornerback play, he was close to perfect last year, and I do think he got away with some penalties that were not called, and like he would like just like out of his concerns out of college, sometimes he could get too handsy or get a little too tangled up, and I think he lucked out on some time. I worry about penalties potentially becoming an issue with the secondary. I like DJ Reed. I like Sauce Gardner. I love this defense. Quentin Williams got paid, but Quentin Williams is no longer on a contract year either. And like while I trust his work ethic, I'm not trying to say he's going to get fat and happy on us. I think that the focus is now solely on winning. It's not about individual performance, who's going to do good, who's going to be the standout. It's about we have the guy in the room who's won a Super Bowl and is going to lead us to do it if we do it right. And like everyone's going to have to be on the same page. And I think that's not like that's something that you don't know until you know. Like, we're going to see it on the field and say like, "Oh, this Jets team was legit last year." And now we're heading into a year where we have a legit quarterback and legit aspirations, or oh, last year was lightning in a bottle, or like like flash in the pan, like and we're not up for the higher expectations, which I think is something that might show itself up in the Giants, like we saw last night.
Yeah, honestly, I agree with you because I was happy that the Jets signed Quentin Williams, honestly, before Hard Knocks even started. And I'm happy
Right.
we didn't have to give him at least over $100 million. Close, though, but not $100 million. So I'm very happy on that. And
Yeah.
honestly, my biggest thing I am looking forward to this Jets-Bills game is actually the coaching of this. Nathaniel Hackett, former Packers OC, former Broncos head coach last year. Obviously, didn't really pan out in Denver. Was a one-and-done type of coach. But the one thing that he is good at is calling plays for Aaron Rodgers. Him and Aaron Rodgers get along so fluently. They mesh together, and I feel
Right.
like with Garrett Wilson and another Packers receiver, Alan Lazard and Randall Cobb, teaching these wide receivers, these young guys, how to work in this offense. Even teaching guys like Tyler Conklin, a former Vikings tight end who signed with us a year ago. It's pretty solid. I think he'll get a big boost from having a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers. I just feel like he might be an underrated target for any of you sleepers, any sleeper tight ends. Tyler Conklin is someone I really like.
That's somebody I grab in my league because I feel the same exact way. Aaron Rodgers made Bobby Tunyon a fantasy viable tight end. I think that he has not really had too many tight ends like this side of Jermichael Finley that have really like been a consistent, like solid presence. He's made do with what he's got. Mercedes Lewis is a very talented tight end, but more a blocker than like the receiving type.
But he's more of a blocking tight end than he is
Yeah,
a
no,
receiving tight end.
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
So I
I agree with
ultimately,
that. More of a blocking tight end.
yeah, like so what I'm looking for from the Jets today, I want to say is who are going to be the guys? Like what's going to be the order? Garrett probably coming one. Garrett Wilson's probably going to be the first. Is Conklin going to be the safety valve? Is he going to end up getting like upwards of like 5, 6, 7 catches? Are we going to look at Nicole Hardman? Is Lazard going to catch go right back to where he was with Rodgers last year? I think that there are a lot of questions that need to be like answered, and I feel like I'm like looking forward to having a tough challenge against Buffalo to like answer them because I feel like almost like the Dolphins Chargers game, like sometimes that tough competition brings out that like optimized play. Like I want to see us firing on all cylinders. I want to see that like everyone's been putting the prep in.
Absolutely, and I agree with that. But there's another player I really am looking forward to is the newly right tackled starter, Mekhi Becton. He's been
See
out
if he
out of the
can
league for
last.
basically 2 years with injury. I just want to see him just make sure he's there.
I want to
Supposedly
make sure he
he's
goes
all
to the
healthy.
game
He's ready to
healthy.
go.
Yeah, because it's really just been one thing after the other for him, and he's a big guy, so those injuries take even extra long to go on the men when you're putting that much extra weight on them, and like you have that much extra weight on you.
And you're still going against like a tough Buffalo defense that you have to
Yeah.
deal with. I don't think Von Miller playing
No,
tonight.
Von's on pup.
I don't know if
Von's
he's on
on.
the.
Yeah, Von's on PUP, so he won't be.
You also
I was
got
gonna
got
ask
a guy
if
like
He
Von's
won't be
on
Ed
top.
available for
Oliver,
4
Gregory
games.
Rousseau.
Rousseau's good. Matt Milano was a star last year in the linebacking core. Tre'Davious White, I think, had a down year last year by his standards, but like he's ultimately
Davis
one of the
White had a
best.
down year. Micah Hyde's coming back from injury.
Jordan
You still got Jordan
Poyer.
Poyer there. You brought him back.
Yeah, so like I think this is going to be quite the matchup. I think there are so many uh just great storylines here. I think that like this was the MetLife Bills game last year was the highlight of our last season. So it's like let's
Oh
get this
yeah,
out of the way. It's either going to be just as good and we win, we celebrate again, and spirits are high, or just like with the Giants, whether like we lose in a close one, as long like maybe not if we lose in a close one, but if we lose and like look like the worst team, all of a sudden it's going to be like New York washed, fake aspirations, another Eagles dream team situation. Like I feel like it could very
absolutely.
quickly like spiral into one of those.
But only thing we'll do is find out tonight. That's the most
Yeah,
important thing.
that's
Yeah,
absolutely it.
that's the
I'm
last
really
thing.
excited. This is the first Monday Night Football. Peyton and Eli doing the casting. Of course, I'm gonna have to watch that.
I'm gonna be watching that instead of Joe Buck and Troy Aikman.
Absolutely.
Hey, I'll be the odd one out and watch Joe Buck and let you guys know how awful it is.
We
Even though
need
we
the
have
different
a pretty good
perspectives.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys,
And
we could look at it from two different perspectives that way.
And before we wrap up with today's first episode, thank you for staying with us this whole time if you have. I want to take a look at week 2 games, which honestly kind of snuck up on me. I know we're playing the Cowboys, Jets Cowboys. That being said, I was kind of shocked to learn that the Vikings and Eagles are playing on week 2. And this was, I think, also a week 2 matchup last year that the Eagles beat the Vikings, and this was like their last loss before the Vikings' huge regular season win streak.
You're right. They were. It was week 2 on a Monday night.
Oh
That
wow,
had Jalen Hurts
another
last year, and he went
primetime
nuts
game.
against the team.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a really interesting one. I don't think it'll be as interesting as last year. I think the Vikings are. We did forget to talk about the Vikings Bucks game. Um, I think the Vikings are on the downturn. They've lost a lot of players. Or Darius Smith, Adam Thielen, I blanking Dalvin Cook,
One
of
more Pat
course.
Pete.
Pat Peterson, like their secondary, like yeah, they got Byron Murphy, but like could be in shambles and lost in a pretty heartbreaking fashion. Had a tough second quarter against Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers, who they were favored to win against. So this might be a tough one coming off a short week, and I'm wondering to see how they go. So that's going to be the Thursday outlook. Ravens, Bengals, Seahawks, Lions, Colts, Texans, Bears, Bucks, Chiefs, Jaguars, Packers, Falcons, Raiders, Bills, Chargers, Titans, all 1 o'clock slot games. I think Raiders, Bills, and Chiefs, Jaguars are the two that definitely like pop out to me the most. Ravens, Bengals, those are
Hey,
the
Yeah,
the game
three.
that popped out
Those
to me is
AFC
Colts.
matchups are just
The
a little
Colts
more
and what's his
intriguing.
face.
What was that, Tev?
That Colts matchup sounds pretty intriguing to me.
Oh yeah,
Battle of the
primetime
Shitty.
television. Oh, we're gonna see the
I
debuts of
I wouldn't mind
two
watching
highly
that.
hyped quarterbacks. Not
Going
debut.
against
That's not
each
the
other. I
right.
think that should be a good matchup. I see the Colts getting on top of it. But
I think another good
yeah,
matchup, good week 2 matchup is honestly the Bengals and Ravens. Two quarterbacks who very disappointed in week 1. Maybe at least hopefully one of them can bounce back against a huge divisional matchup.
yeah. Hopefully we don't see two shitty quarterback play again. To add on to that spice up, that those two teams, that game's gonna have a lot more weight to it. Come down to the later in the season, I believe. So I think watching that game to see how it turns out. We shouldn't sweep that win or loss under the rug because it's gonna come back to bite whoever in the ass, or it's gonna come back to help whatever team. They typically have pretty similar records around mid-season. They're both teams that usually get a little resurgence during the mid-season. They start off slow, so like you said, this matchup should be good. This matchup should give us a better insight into that AFC spot in the playoffs. Who's going to get that higher seed? I know it's early, but this might show who's going to get the higher seed, the Bengals or the Ravens. So hopefully we do see some very good star power there.
Yeah, I think between that game, the Chiefs-Jaguars game, and the Raiders-Bills games, I think all those have heavy implications. All the AFC games in the 1 o'clock windows, even Chargers-Titans, I look at as, like, both of those teams, like, had relatively middling years. I know the Chargers made the playoffs just to get bounced in a very, very unpleasant fashion. But I feel like, the Chargers and Titans are teams that people have their eyes on early to see, like, is this going to be a team that finally makes the leap and potentially becomes contenders? Maybe with the Titans, it's the other side of the question. Are they on their way out? But the Raiders, Bills, I think those are two teams that are potentially, like, teams, like, people are looking for as a potential regression. Like the Bills, they're saying, like, there's some rumors that they've left their Super Bowl window. Stephon Diggs isn't happy and that they're going to have to blow things up. But honestly, I just feel like that's going to be another I believe it when we see it thing. Like, I look at that as Bills are heavily favored at home against the Raiders, but it does strike me as one that could potentially surprise for next week. Moving on to the 4 o'clock window.
Yeah, that's definitely a trap game.
Yeah, I feel like moving on to the 4 o'clock window, we have another set of 4 very nice games. 49ers Rams, where Matthew Stafford will take on Brock Purdy and the Niners, and I think that could end up being a lot more exciting than we thought just before yesterday's game. Giants Cardinals, maybe a good potential turnaround game for the Giants. The Cardinals, maybe a good potential time to get their first win on the board because we don't know when that might happen, especially without Kyler. Jets Cowboys, go Jets. I think that's going to be one of our biggest challenges the early season, going against a defense that's going to be like that good that early when we're still getting ourselves together offensively. And Commanders Broncos, Howell versus Russ, the quarterback battle that everyone's waiting for.
Honestly, though, game of the week, it's obviously Cowboys Jets. I think because Aaron Rodgers always has the Cowboys numbers, always have their number. So
Let's
am I
hope
still
so.
concerned about this? Yes.
It might not be the same old
But
Cowboys.
I still I think, yeah, hopefully it's the same old Cowboys next week.
But that brings us to our 3 weekend primetime, or Sunday, Monday primetime games. Sunday, Dolphins Patriots ends the Sunday slate of games, which I think that's going to be a really good one. Patriots always play up to their divisional rivals, even as they have fallen down in the division. So I will see if the Miami Dolphins can pull it out. Then on Monday we have Tev's team, the Panthers, playing the Saints, and a chance for the Browns to prove that they're legit, or the Steelers to prove that last week was a fluke and that they are ready to take on the season.
Hey, I'm giving a fair warning that Panthers game is going to prove that rebuilding teams and number 1 picks should never have primetime games. We are going to look awful compared to the Saints. The Saints had a bad week. I believe we're going to be their bounce back week. I believe Derek Carr might throw for 300 plus against us, a few touchdowns. We are lacking in star power to keep up with them. And hey, divisional matchups are weird with the NFC South. We split this matchup last year with them. But I do not see us having. I see them bouncing back more than us bouncing back with a rookie quarterback. I see Derek Carr having a pretty good week, even with because Chris Olave went out early with a injury, which we forgot to talk about. He's going to bounce. He's going to be back in full contact. Michael Thomas should be back out there. I don't know that team.
Yeah, Michael Thomas
team
was
might
out
be a
there
little
for
better.
week 1. So as long as he's healthy, I feel like the offense for the Saints could always have like a high ceiling. I feel like Derek Carr didn't have the best season last year. The Saints' offensive line isn't what it used to be without Teron Armstead. I think that NFC South matchup, I think I look at it the opposite of the way of you. I think that might be the Panthers get right game.
Hey man, I don't want to sound like a biased Panthers fan. Of course, I'm rooting for the win. I'm gonna have my Bryce jersey on. Yeah, that Monday night game, I'm a big frowner upon teams in our situation to have primetime games. I feel like it gives teams like us a negative, especially this early in a rebuild. I think it's a negative spotlight. It's not necessarily a good spotlight, especially for the younger players. To be on that prime time, most of the world watching you network. But hey, they make the big bucks. The schedule makers make the big bucks. I'm just here to comment on it. But yeah, I don't think that's a good call to have the Panthers at least week 2 showing off. But yeah, it's a divisional matchup. It might be very, very good. A few years back, I don't know if you know this, the Panthers and the Saints usually have big rivalries. One year they put a broom in what's his face's locker and Cam Newton's locker because they knocked us out of the playoffs. Following year we beat them. We took them out the playoffs and we returned the broom back. So we've been going back and forth with some little anarchy. We have what's his face, Cam what's his face? I forgot his last name. Oh man, this is awful. The D end Cam what's
Cam
his face
Jordan?
on the Saints. Yeah, Cam Jordan on the Saints, who's on the back end of his career, but he always has a great game against divisional rivals. So keep an eye out for him. Like we said, Derek Carr didn't have a good year last year and a good game this past game. So that more or less might be his 4th or his official preseason game. We might see him come out and be great this game. We might not. So that spotlight game, I believe that the Saints, if they don't get this win, this is going to be what their season is going to be like. This is going to be the basis of their season. Mediocre quarterback play, a defense that's going to bail them out a lot more so than their offense winning them games. And yeah, we're going to see, I feel like this is a real good floor for them to say, yo, this is the team that we're going to be putting out every week and whatsoever. But if they can get a bounce back win, I feel like that's going to be the team that they're going to be showing. If they can't and they play down to us, that's going to be the team that we're going to be watching a lot.
I hear you.
Hey.
No, for sure. And on that note, guys, I'm starting to sweat in my jersey, and I feel the stains getting bigger and bigger. So our first podcast, I think, went a little longer than we intended. That being said, I feel very good about this. I feel like it was a big success. I feel like we were able to provide our perspective to all the people that are going to be listening. And I would like to, once again, thank everyone. I think that we're going to have a lot of fun this football season.
Thank you, man. Don't
Absolutely,
forget to sub
man.
up. I am on a laptop that is from 2015. My gaming chair just broke, so sub up so you guys could see Goldman's face, and I could afford a new gaming chair and a new laptop because, yeah, sub up, man.
Yeah, help us make it big
yeah.
talking about sports. Shit we would be doing anyway.
Yeah, shit that we do all season anyway. Make our crazy calls. Make our crazy calls come to light. And also, before we end this, I starred this on my notes. Comeback player of the year is going to be Calvin Ridley. I'm calling it now, week 1. Calvin Ridley, comeback player of the year off of suspension.
My vote?
He is going to have. You can throw your vote out there, man.
Do you want the official comeback player of the year and who it's going to be? Or do you want the one that,
official.
Damar Hamlin. There's going to be Damar
Hey,
Hamlin.
They already gave him the trophy already. What do you mean?
They might really just give it to him. I don't like the way that they've been throwing a media storm on him. I've heard more of him than Bill's camp.
It's like Damar Hamlin and Stephon Diggs. Like, that's really it. And, like, I respect it. Like, I'm glad he's, like, you know, I'm glad he's all right. I'm glad he's getting the press because, like, I do think, like, good can come of it. Like, you know, more awareness and crap like that. I don't actually have a prediction. I think I'd probably also go Calvin Ridley for a lack of thinking about other players. Maybe Matt Stafford if he balls out. But I want to say, like, probably my, like, bold prediction or, like, way too early week 1 prediction is that Tyreek Hill is going to win Offensive Player of the Year. I just felt like he was on a different level compared to everyone in that Chargers defense.
Coming into the season, I said he's going to win MVP and potentially even break the receiving yards record. So you saying Offensive Player of the Year gave me. Yeah, I see him breaking that illustrious receiving yard record, especially with the game he had yesterday.
If Tua stays healthy, yeah.
I don't know. That offense is way too strong for him not to be able to get force that single coverage. Who's going to get off that double coverage off of Waddle? Who are you going to be able to give double coverage on Tyreek Hill? and know that you have a third string, potentially second string cornerback, besides very select teams that could keep up with Waddle and Tyreek Hill, and then that run game as well, to keep up with that run game, and then not to discredit any of the other wide receivers, but they're obviously going to be getting catch or two here and there. So that team is set up for him to break that record, and I believe that him going back home to Miami fills that storyline even better. Went back from home to Miami, had an off year, quarterback was hurt, finally has a full healthy season, breaks the record, makes it far in the playoffs, wins MVP. I believe that's gonna be the narrative for this season. Tyreek Hill and his dominance. That's what is going to run the NFL. I don't know. I don't know if I'm falling for something or whatever, but I love it. I love that call.
No, after week 1, that's my bold prediction. Charlie, do you have any bold predictions for us?
Bold predictions is that I think Garrett Wilson leads the league in receiving yards. That's
You
honestly
wouldn't
my bold
draft him in
prediction.
round 1 in fantasy. I
was trying to play the ADP with that. I was trying to play the ADP game with that, but
and you got to stick to your own draft board. The ADP is an amalgamation of people that made their own choices. I think that I'm getting off topic here. I'll give you more shit for fantasy football off the podcast, but once again, thank you everyone. But that's all we have in store. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next week. Once again, I'm Matt.
I'm Charlie.
Let me get my camera back up so I could give myself a formal
Yeah,
goodbye.
Charlie, get back in here. I'm lonely over here.
Yeah, I had to switch angles a little bit so I look crazy. And like I said, this camera's from 2015. I need y'all to sub up. My name's Thev, man. We're gonna throw the socials up. We're gonna get us a better setup, man. Get us in a whole room together. I don't know if I'm even allowed to say that, but let's get us in a whole room together, a little building, and try to get some interviews going too in the future. But definitely sub up, like it up. Even if you don't sub up, share it with your friends.
Sleeper
we're just a group
sponsor
of friends
us.
that do fantasy together.
We do Sleeper fantasy football. Sleeper sponsor us.
Manscaped
we're just a
sponsor
group of
us.
friends
Raid
that do
Shadow
fantasy.
Legends.
Everything, man.
Raid Shadow Legends.
If you're a scam, we'll even promote you at this point. We need anything.
Pyramid schemes, come to us. We're your guys.
So thank you for tuning in and everything. And yeah, I'm Thev. Yeah.
Zach, do you want to say anything else?
Season for the Panthers.
Zach, you got anything to add over there? Nah, Zach left us halfway through. He will be back for next week. He had an obligation to make. But this is our group. And we'll be looking forward to tuning in with you again soon. Later, guys.
See you later. Let's go, Jets.